Shalom and welcome. I'm Lori Weintrob, professor of history and director of the Wagner College Holocaust and Education Programming Center. And I'm very honored to be here today with Romi Cohn, Mr. Romi Cohn, and other distinguished guests who I will introduce later in the program. We are very honored to have, for April of 2015, Mr. Romi Cohn came and spoke to a room full of students, faculty, community members, Holocaust survivors, and following a candle lighting ceremony in honor of Yom HaShoah, to have spoken to us about his life history. Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, is every year both to honor those who were lost, the 6 million Jews and other victims of Nazi atrocities, and also to honor those who fought in the resistance. The president of Wagner College and many others were so moved by Mr. Romi Cohn's testimony that he was invited to receive the honorary doctorate this year at graduation in May of 2016. So in preparation, we're going to have a conversation. I'm looking forward to learning more about your experiences, and as the Holocaust Center has been doing, to share these with the Staten Island community, people of all backgrounds, including particularly young people in schools. Can you just start by telling us about the pin that you're wearing, which correlates to the title of your book?
This is the Silver Star from the underground fighters, which the partisans were fighting the Nazis, and they made a tremendous impact because of fighting behind the enemy lines. Matter of fact, we tied up a whole division of SS. The only problem was we originally had 250 fighters with 30 horses, and at the end of the war, all horses were shot, and only 25 of those fighters survived. I'm the only living freedom fighter who has this medal.
We're going to hear today the incredible story of how you went from a 13-year-old yeshiva boy in Slovakia to fighting the Nazis and forging Nazi documents. And with us today, I want to introduce our esteemed guests. The Honorable Judge Phillip Straniere, who also is a member of the Wagner College Chai Society board and has long supported the development of Jewish life and Holocaust studies at Wagner College. Leo Schuchert, who is one of our recent graduates 2 years ago, was a Holocaust intern, the first group of Holocaust interns at Wagner College's Center, and is now working for Wagner in the Center for Leadership and Civic Engagement. Mr. Charles DeStefano, Professor Alexandra Zagorin, who is a professor of nursing at Wagner College, a Staten Islander, and also is serving on the Chai Society board supporting Jewish life and Holocaust studies at Wagner College.
Very honored to be again in your presence, Rabbi Cohn. I would say meeting you has been transformational to me personally. Meeting you connected something that was abstract in my mind and only found in history books. And you are living history. You're a brave man, and that's a word that hero is the word I was thinking of. You're a true hero. And in our society, the word hero seems to be overused. But in the context of you, a noble person who fought against the Nazis, who essentially dismantled Western society. And the reason that I asked as the former president of the trial lawyers to have Rabbi Cohn speak to this group of young people and young lawyers and members of our association was because we sometimes take for granted what the rule of law means. It's just a term that, again, lawyers, law students read about. We take for granted sometimes what the Constitution has granted us as people, what the Bill of Rights have given us as people. But what the Nazis did was to take away the laws that protected people piece by piece, and essentially that eroded society. They took away people's rights to vote, which is probably the most important right. They took away people's right to own property, to own businesses. That again put them in financial straits, caused them to suffer greatly. And then, of course, the final solution was something that was an affirmative law that essentially took away 6 million people, 6 million souls from our planet. And Rabbi Cohn was able to tell students that this is something that has not gone away. And he left us with something. The last thing that, I don't know if you recall telling the students, was that this can happen again, and that we should all be very attuned to and focused on what's happening in the world, in world politics and societies. Because as you told the students, that growing up as a young boy in Bratislava, that it was essentially a place where Christians and Jews and everyone got along, and your neighbors, there was no distinction between what your religious beliefs were, or whether you prayed or didn't pray, or what your background was. But suddenly it went away, and that can happen again today. So I think that you serve that link between that world that is abstract and you've made it a concrete thing. And I thank you for being here. I feel blessed to be in your presence again.
Judge DeStefano, I am very moved, those very kind words, and they really touched my heart.
When I first started your book, The Youngest Partisan, one of the pictures that really jumped out at me was the picture of you with your two sisters, and discussing your life in Slovakia as a child. You were born in 1929, right, in a community that was multi-ethnic. Can you just tell us a little about growing up in Pressburg?
Our neighbors were our best friends. We employed in our business Gentiles, Germans, or Hungarians. There was no difference. We all lived together with harmony. There was no such a thing. We never dreamt that there is going to be one day where you're going to have a difference between one nationality or the other. We had a maid, a nanny. She was with us, I think, for 7 or 8 years. I remember she brought us up. She got married. My parents bought the furniture. They bought the outfitting, and they gave her a marriage like they would be her own child. And she was not Jewish, she was Catholic. So just show you the relation we had with Gentiles that are not Jewish. Unfortunately, with the Hitler propaganda just hammering away day or night, and all the papers, all the demonstrations the Nazis did and so on, and finally this harmony was completely broken. And within a short time, maybe 2 years, those wonderful neighbors of ours, they turned into our enemies.
Hitler came to power in 1933. In 1938, he invaded Austria and annexed Austria.
Right.
He invaded Czechoslovakia a few months later and annexed parts of Czechoslovakia, which was your country.
Czech and Moravia.
And so can you say how, when you were about 9 years old, 9 or 10, how did that begin to affect you and your siblings?
It encouraged all kind of lowlifes, hooligans. They knew the Jews have no civil rights, to attack them, to rob them. I remember we came home once from the synagogue in the evening, walking with my father, and we were very vigilant to make sure we don't encounter this kind of lowlifes. We're making the corner, and all of a sudden we're facing there maybe a dozen. They call it so-called Hitlerjugend. So we saw my father. They started to jump at him. They started to beat him up. He was laying on the floor, bleeding. And I kept screaming, "Police, help! Police, help!" The decent people, they just make believe they don't see it. And the other ones, they were cheering them on. "Kill the Jew, kill the Jew." He was slain unconscious, then they left. So this kind of experience happened almost every day. See, in 1939, when Germans invaded Czechia and Moravia, that time Slovakia, they made an ally with Hitler. This was one of the axis. So they had all the help from Hitler. And not only that, they had their own guard, they called the Hlinka Guard. And they were enforcing the culture of Hitler.
Culture of anti-Semitism.
Culture of humanity, which Hitler considered to be.
And so one time they attacked the yeshiva and you had to jump out a window?
Yeah. We were in high school. Kids were 13, 14, 15, 16. Of course, there was a high school, and there was that time with the gate there, iron gate, so to protect just in case. They came in, they broke the gate, they came into the classes. They started to beat the teacher, the children, they were all laying, bleeding on the floor. I was lucky, my seat was next to the window, so I jumped out the window and I got saved. But all my friends, my schoolmates, they all got, till they were bloody laying there, they didn't leave.
How long did it take for the change to occur in your community?
In Czechoslovakia, they were afraid, they knew that Hitler is going to come to attack, but then the publicity, tremendous publicity, not only publicity in the newspapers, you had every Jewish store, you had over there Jew with the Star of David. Don't buy from Jews, they're bloodsuckers. Don't do this, don't get friendly with the Jews. It kept on going on, this was going on continuously. But the general public, if you can take the house of the Jew and you can move in there, but you never had a house, or you can take his property, his business, you became the new owner there. There are many, many people willing to look for it. Slovak government joined Hitler, his axis, his allies. Then they became laws. They took away all the civil rights. And gradually, every week by week, they came around. A Jew cannot have a bicycle. A Jew cannot employ Gentiles. And gradually, little by little, till finally they came and Jews cannot own any business. They had to turn in all your jewelry, and bank account was confiscated.
And you also talk about something exceptional that your father did of trying to help some of the refugees fleeing Germany and Jewish refugees.
Took them into the house, shared our living quarters with them. And this was not only my father, my parents did it, all the people in town. When the refugees came running away from Hitler, they took him in.
3 sisters and 2 brothers, so there was 6 of you.
Yeah.
And how did your parents make this very difficult decision that it was time to send you away from Pressburg on your own for safety?
That time there was a law. Besides, they took away the businesses, and not only businesses, houses. Every house lived there for my grandparents were living in the same house. All of a sudden, he had the order to leave the house because a Gentile family is going to be moving in. You had to leave everything there. They gave you 2 valises to take out, and you had to move out. And they moved in. People around the street, they had nowhere to be. We were fortunate that our house was not taken away. So we took in our house, we shared with the 3 other families. Blow them in, shared the bedrooms, and they were living with us.
That your father had a business that was of tremendous importance to the local economy. So is that the reason why your family was basically given a pass at that time, or is there some other reason?
Yes, they started to deport the Jews. So what they did is they have special permits given out and exceptions that they're not going to be sent away. And they gave them a special preferred, they call it the economic important Jew. And they were exempt from sending away to Auschwitz, to the camps.
Amidst all of this madness of, at some point, the locals who were affiliated with the Nazis, breaking doors open, taking families out in the middle of the night, that came after, first taking away your voting rights, taking away your business, and then eventually doing this.
Exactly.
What I
correct,
found
yeah.
remarkable is that throughout all this, you and your family remain incredibly devoted to God and religion. And I know that there was a point in which your father was seized by Nazi associates, and that took place on a very special holy day to you. And you went to a restaurant with your dad, and that's when your dad was seized from you. You remained under a table, and you were secreted under a table. But despite going through all of that, and losing your family, losing your father, getting arrested, you went to the synagogue to get money to get your father out of this local jail. I mean, despite going through that and being here today, you've remained incredibly devoted to religion and God.
When they declared a law that they're going to not only take away their property, they're going to send them to Poland. Matter of fact, the Slovak Nazi government paid 200 German marks for each Jew to take him. So they send it out every 2 weeks. There came a list. They have to appear there and there. It was 200-300 people, and they took him away. And this was going on. Every 2 weeks, a new list came out, and they took him away. Originally, this was supposed to be going to the labor camp, to Poland. There was no question about killing them or to die. When this law came out that they're going to send all the Jews into Poland, the community was terribly broken. They were praying day or night. They closed all schools, and they prayed day or night, hoping that the prayers that something will happen, some miracle will happen, and they'll be saved. So my parents said, if this is our destiny, that we have to die because we're Jews for God, we're willing to sacrifice our life to God. Except my parents, they were concerned once the whole family is wiped out and they're all dead. It is a custom by Jews. They have a prayer which is called Kaddish after the dead. This is a prayer which you pray. So they said, we're all going to be dead. Who is going to say that Kaddish? So they wanted to have at least someone should survive, be able to say that prayer for them. So since I was the oldest, they decided I should be the one. But how to save yourself? Where do we go? The borders are closed. One side is Germany, the other one is Austria, the other one is Poland. Then one side was Hungary. Hungary was a place that time which did not prosecute the Jews. The Jews were living there in peace. So this was the place to go. But how do you go? You don't have passports. You're not allowed to travel on the bus or a train. The borders were so fortified, they had even electric fences. There was one fence at the Slovak border, then there was 100 feet of no man's land, then the Hungarian had a big fence there. So we had to get those fence and that no man's land was patrolled every 5 minutes. A patrol came and then they had the light towers watching continuously. So it was almost impossible to get there. So we found one person who was willing, he's living right on the border. And he knows every hole, every bush, and so on. And he had a way of tunneling under the fence. So for a lot of money, I think it was at that time 20,000 crowns, which was today at least double in dollars, he was willing to risk his life and take me across the border. Now we are home now with my father and my mother, with the children, my sisters and brothers, and I look at each other. They know that they'll never see me again. And I know that I'll never see him again. Finally, the guy said, let's go. And I left. We came certain places which were open. We had to crawl on the stomach for hours. Because we stand up, we would be noticed. Finally, we got to the fence. So I was watching there's a patrol going by here. He knew that from this patrol, it takes approximately 3 minutes, the second patrol comes. They knew also the lighting tower. So he said we have exactly 2 minutes to get across. So we had a hole underneath the fence. We had to run across to the Hungarian border. And it was the wish of God, that we survived. We managed to get across. After a couple of weeks, they started to search. They were notified that my uncle is hiding refugees. So I started to look, started came raids. I crawled up over the garage. They had a little attic space, closed space. So I spent in that closed space all night. They came to raid and looking for it. I didn't speak the language. I had false papers. I got papers from my cousin. He's local. He's a Hungarian citizen. But the papers didn't help me much because I couldn't speak the language. The minute they asked me, what's your name? Soon I open my mouth, they know that who I am. I walked the streets, winter, freezing. I had nowhere to sleep. Nobody takes away refugees because they would be terribly punished. I decided I'm going to go to a synagogue and sleep there. So I come to the synagogue, I'm sitting down, nice and warm. They're lecturing. Wonderful. Came down 10 o'clock, the lecture's finished, and people are leaving the synagogue. So I came over the secton. I said, oh no, you cannot sleep here tonight. If I let you sleep here, I'm getting into big trouble. So I begged him, I have nowhere to sleep. He says, yes, I sympathize with you, but if I let you sleep, I'll get fired immediately. I have wife and children, and I need a job. Finally, I begged him, please. So he said he opened up, there was a door to the attic, not to the attic, underneath shingles, the beams. I was freezing at night, tongue curling into my coat, frozen through and through. So this the way I spent my time in Hungary. I walk in the streets, finally find two friends of mine. They were also from Pressburg. So I tell him, listen, I have nowhere to sleep. He says, "No, you know what? Where I am, there's an extra bed for hire. People rented out beds, not room beds." He says, "You can come there." The man is an old man. He has a long white beard. And he's deaf, completely deaf. So he wouldn't recognize when you speak that you're not a Hungarian. So he came in there, I showed him the papers. Yeah, I hired that bed. Wonderful. One day, I come home and I see my friends standing against the wall, shivering. I said, "Hugo, what's going on here?" They didn't say a word, they kept quiet. Then I saw a middle-aged man on the room, and he says, "You are also one of the people who live here? Get your stuff and get out of here." This was around 10 o'clock at night. So I told him, "Please have mercy. If we go out 10 o'clock at night, the first call and the police will stop me, we are finished. Let us stay here till the morning and we leave." "No way, out of here." I went on the floor, his legs, was crying, "Please have mercy, let us till the morning." So he said, "Get out of here," didn't want to hear nothing. I went to the kitchen. I took out one of the biggest butcher knives he had. And I came to him, holding my knife. He says, "You want to kill me? If you kill me, you're going to kill me right in front of your fathers, in your father and your father's house. We're not moving till the morning." Then he finally let us stay.
After your father had been taken, suddenly you found yourself alone again in Pressburg and were called upon to save other families.
The last episode was I was in the yeshiva in Nitra. At that time, the revolution, there was a revolution against the Nazis. It was quite successful, and the good part of the army joined the resistance against the Nazis. They were successful. They had occupied already a whole third of the country. So I went to the dean and asked him, I want to go to Bratislava, to Pressburg, to get myself papers that I'm a Gentile. The next day, they raided the whole yeshiva, the whole complex, and some of the people, they have a bunker, they had a bunker built between the attic and between the roof, and there were a couple of bunkers there, so people used that hiding place, and some people tried to escape. Matter of fact, a friend of mine who I was learning with, he tried to escape. There was a fence, was trying in the backyard, trying across to escape. He was shot right on the fence. They left him there for 2 days. He was on the fence, dead. So once I was in Pressburg, I had my papers. My father had very close friends. And where he had, before he left, he had valuables saved by them. In fact, this person was a banker. He was a manager in a big bank. So whenever I needed any money, I went in there to the teller. I signed the IOU, and they gave me the money. It was going on. So I had money to live and so on. Then I joined the underground. I was working with them. The janitor of the Gestapo headquarters was the caretaker of the building. So he had all the keys. And now we needed papers. Even had papers, they came out the law that every 30 days they have to revalidate it. You have to go to the Gestapo and have a stamp in it. This the way they eliminate any kind of. So what happened is, I was going on the streets, and I met people who were also on papers, but they have to go to the Gestapo on a valley. There's a tremendous chance if they're going to come out or not. So I collected those papers, I brought them with me to that building, which was the municipal building. This was also, first floor was the Gestapo headquarters. And there were all the papers and so on. So at night, my man went up to the office. He had the keys there and stamped everything. I needed new papers. I gave him the picture there. He put it on. And now I have to sign it. I signed it, I think, better than him himself.
You're now how, 14 or 15 years old?
That,
You're in the underground?
This was around 15 going to 16. I walk in the streets. In the evening I see one person. His name was Mayor Schreiber. He was a very fine gentleman in the community. And I see standing in the street in front of a department store. We knew that anybody you meet on the street, you don't notice him, because the Gestapo, when they caught somebody, they put him out on the street and they were hiding somewhere, and everyone came to hello. They had another, they used him as bait. So we knew that you see another Jew on the street, you make believe you don't see him. So I passed by, and instead of speaking to him, I started to whistle. I started to whistle a song which is sung in the synagogue. I knew no Gestapo goes to the synagogue who's familiar with this song. So I was whistling it away. While I sit by, he comes over to me. Oh, he tells me his story. He's hiding by Gentiles. And he gave him his paying him. He gave him all the money. Then he had no more money. He gave him the wife's jewelry. That was all gone. He gave him all the valuables. Now he's nothing to give. And this gentleman is hiding and he says, look here. I'm putting my life in danger. If they catch you here, I'm dead as you are. I have to go to the back market and buy food for you and your family. This is a fortune of money. I can't afford it. So, or you can bring me some money, or you have to leave. I can't afford it. So therefore I came out here, see, maybe I can find something. And he found me. So I gave him the money. And the mate up, we're going to meet in a week again. After a week or two, I come to the meeting place, and he's with two other people. I got scared. Maybe those are Gestapos. He comes over to me and says, those two people are neighbors. So I gave them some money. And walk on the streets there, this is something which I cannot afford. It's nice enough, he gave me what I need, but this is big money. I knew there was one person who was hiding. His name was Mr. Stern. His business was with money transfers. And he had connections with Swiss diplomats. So for him, money was no object. He was together hiding with the famous Rabbi Weissmandl. I don't know if you've heard of him, he's well known. He was working, trying to light the way for negotiating with Himmler's representative to save the Jews. Didn't have enough money there, of course, so I knew this Mr. Stern, he had a servant, which was a Christian servant, was very devoted to him. Don't tell me where Mr. Stern is, I don't want to know. In case they catch you, and they had such a method of tormenting him, you said which you knew he didn't know. So what I don't know, I can't say. But I need that money. Made up with her, I meet in two days. The second day I meet her on a certain place, meeting place, and she came with a shopping bag. That shopping bag was enough money to able to help those families.
How do you advise young people, especially recent college graduates, to avoid current day racism, prejudice, or discrimination of a large group of people? And what is at risk if people stand by or do not help?
You know, this debate started by the Nazis. Didn't came out to kill the Jew because nobody agreed to it. Started by little. And you gave in, all right. So what? You got beaten up on the way to the street every time coming home. All right. So what? And little by little, till they came to that full program, take their belongings away, take the business away, take the houses away, and then kill them. So once it starts the beginning, you have to stop it right there. Do everything possible. Don't be afraid. When I was chased by kids, one day I decided I don't want to be chased anymore. So they surrounded me, and some of them were teenagers, much taller than I am. So I went, and they were surrounded. So I went to the tallest, the biggest. I got punched, but I managed to get close enough to him. Once close to him, I gave him one punch in the nose, and all of a sudden started to bleed. And two friends of his, all the shirt was full of blood. But since then, I had no problem. Stand up for your rights. When they call me on the street Jew, you know, I don't make myself don't hear it. I go after them.
Why people in Europe didn't stand up when the program started? Was it the fear? Was it the unknown? Or maybe at some point where they already knew where they were going after a year or so with other countries involved and more concentration camps opened up, etc. Was it just fear? How come thousands and thousands of people just gathered their belongings and went?
200 people, for instance, in a march to the train. They had German soldiers. If everyone, if you spit him in his face, he would drown from the spit. Didn't have to descend. But they had such a fear, you know. This was such a fear. They had no stand to stand up.
When did people realize that that the Jews weren't really being relocated to farms or labor camps, or being moved for their protection? You know, because that was the line. Did people know immediately that they were going to death camps?
No. The Germans, they had well organized. They had the Judenrat. They formed a committee with Judenrat, and they did all the work for them. And it was a question just to go to work. Nobody dreamed, that there's a question of being killed. The Slovaks, they had the army. And since they were allies to Hitler, they went also fighting in the front, to Poland, Russia. They came on vacations, and they tried to tell the whole story. So we knew there's no such thing as labor camps and so on. We knew this. Once we go to the chambers.
There's also a combination of incredible deception of telling the Jews that they're going to get on the train, giving them food for coming down to the train station in a moment when there's complete starvation in the ghettos, and then even going as far as having relatives forcing relatives to write letters from the death camps to say that they've been relocated and everything is better here. So there was an element of deception. And then each country has a different timeline, but it's implemented in a way that it makes resistance extremely difficult. And when there could be resistance, even in the death camps, there was resistance. But remember, the decision for the final solution, for example, takes place in the fall of 1941, and is conveyed to the other European Nazis in January of 1942. The death camps are built in 1942 and begin operating. The most murderous year is 1942. The first 1.5 million Jews that are killed point blank range, not in the death camps, but by Nazi soldiers invading Russian territory primarily. When I first met you, you gave me this ID card for the Wagner archives with a Nazi pass that says you're a Nazi agent, and I believe you used it to travel on a train where everyone else on the train was a Nazi. So this was after you had gotten caught once in Pressburg and decided that you could no longer continue to work with the janitor to save these 57 families. You passed along that underground work to somebody else, and you decided to leave Pressburg. Can you tell us about that?
In the underground, they advised me that I can't stay any longer because they are very eager. They think I'm one of the leaders or something important. So they were very eager to get me. He says, they're going to get you. I mean, every public toilet had your picture hanging. So to leave town, you need a special permit to travel. Everybody that are close to the front. So instead of getting a permit to travel, I got myself a permit, a travel order from the Gestapo. And the travel order means I am also part of the Gestapo. So anybody I show this document, they saluted, the biggest respect, they clicked the boots, and I got on the train, and I finally got to my destination. This was right at the border where the partisans' territory starts, and this was the last outpost from the Germans. There was a river there, the Rhone River, and they come into the German outpost, introduced myself, gave me a big party, drank, and know this, and it came dark, came night. They wished me good luck, and I went across the little wooden bridge and arrived in that little town. So walking on the street, and I needed my contact. He gave me an address where contact with the partisans. So I asked a woman, tell me, where is this person, where is those people living? So he says, young man, you can't walk at night on the street. The partisans going to shoot you. You can't do that. Anyway, this was the nicest, sweetest words I heard since 1942.
Listening, building on what you've just been saying, you know, all the stories of horror and the death and the deception you had to go through. Are there any things that you remember that were like funny, or is it just so bad that there's nothing that was good?
I can't remember anything
Okay.
because all you had in mind in your life, whatever you do, you always walked one head of being dead, 1 foot. Wherever you went, if you went to a restaurant on the streets there, they were following. That was, whatever I did, I was 1 foot away from death.
When I met you at your home, you had baby chicks in your hand, and I said, what type of chicks are they? And you said, these are peacocks. So I was pretty fascinated that you were raising peacocks, but the question I asked you was, how did the partisans know when you finally arrived that you were one of them and not a Nazi? And I remember you saying to me, you had a hat, and it had a special feather in it, and it was a peacock feather. So I was wondering if something up there was sending a message about this symbol of peacocks.
Yeah. You see, when I came to town, when the woman told me that you have to be careful of the partisans, I came to the house, but I had a code to give them. there was a prearranged code, so I gave him the code. So we're riding maybe an hour or two, and came deep into the mountains. All you can see is trees and snow. And all of a sudden they stopped. They tied the horse to a tree branch. They let me get off. They tied my horse also to a tree branch. Then all of a sudden they broke up a branch from a pine tree and started to sweep the snow, and kept on sweeping the snow. A trapdoor was visible, and they opened it up. It says, "Down you go." There's no other guard. I went down. I faced the commander, the captain, Captain Kostoshenko. I says, "What's your name?" Told him, "Romi Cohn." "Show me your papers." I show him my papers. He says, "No, your name is Jan Kovac." So I told him, "Excuse me, Captain, those papers are false. I'm Jewish, and my name is Romi Cohn, and these papers are false." He looks at it again and says, "No, your name is Jan Kovac." So I say, "Excuse me that again. Those papers are false." Gave a bang, and the paper was like a tree cut in half with some. This was gave a bang on the so-called table. The table jumped up maybe a foot high. He says, "Your name is Jan Kovac. Get out of here. Get your arms." So his problem was, he knew that among his men there could be somebody who is a anti-fascist, but at the same time could be anti-Semite. So I want to make sure my life is sure among his people. So as long as they don't know that I'm Jewish, I'll be safe. I wouldn't be exposed to any. And I had one guy was German, so I made sure wherever I went, I was behind him, because when you start to shoot, so always make sure.
How did you reunite with your family? How did that happen? How were you able to meet your sisters again? How do you raise a mensch in today's society?
I came home to my hometown. I went to my parents' house. A family well established over there. I looked at them, they looked at me, and I tried to tell them it's my parents' house. They don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I went to the synagogue. There I met today a few people who came back. They had a handful of people. One person comes over to me and started to kiss me and cry, "You are my father, father, father." He says, "What happened?" There's one person which I helped with. The second person comes over to me again, embraced me. He says, "You're the father of my family." It's very emotional. Now I have to collect my family. I knew my family was saved by a Gentile family. That's a daughter. I knew she survived. So I went to Hungary, and I know where she was. So I picked her up and brought her home. My other sister was also saved. She was also in Hungary, and she came home. I got a message that she's alive, and I came home. So we had a nice house for them.
That was Sarah and
Sarah and Hannah. Now my father, I knew he went on the death march, on famous death march. And the people came every other day. The people came by train from the camps, survivors. So I went to the train station, and I was waiting, and I watched. Person comes down. That's not my father. Another one comes down. Oh, again, not my father. One day I'm waiting by the station, waiting the plane should unload, and I see one of our neighbors. Recognized me, I recognized him. I said, tell me, have you seen my father? He says, yes. Don't hope for him. When I left him, he was just gone. But now I have obligations. I have 2 sisters, and I have to make money to provide them. But one day I come from my trips. And as a matter of fact, I remember it was a Friday, it was very busy. I had to buy a new hat. Got my new hat, and I was rushing. All of a sudden, I see a person with his consultation clothes holding onto a pole. And I said to myself, those Germans, how could they make out of a person such skeleton? It's nothing but no remembrance of a, so like you see in the museum, a skeleton hanging, except it was covered with a grey skin. And past the person, I met 3 steps. All of a sudden, someone calls my name. The name this call was my father. Just by the voice, I recognized him. So I picked him up and I brought him into a private sanatorium. And I came in, I spoke to the doctor who owns the sanatorium, and I put my machine gun on the table. My father sitting here. So I told him, Doctor, it's you, it's or you or him. This language he understood. Anyway, they took care of him. They nursed him back little by little. And finally he was able to function.
And what age did he live to?
Oh, 94.
Oh.
He remarried and had, I think, 6, 7 children.
Did you ever learn what happened to your mother? And
Never.
the 4 other
Never.
children. Earlier, Mr. DeStefano had asked a question about religion and faith and your faith in God through this. I know throughout the book you talk a little bit, offer some words. Can you tell us?
Yeah. You see, the Jewish people, they pray twice a day, morning and night. One of the very important prayers are the Shema. Shema Israel, or He Israel. Yeah? And they say, I love my God with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my belongings. And this we say twice a day. And I say, now is the time, even if to give my life away for God, you know, I am yours. I shall love you forever. And this, and I felt my faith got even stronger, because I've seen wherever I went, I had 2 angels, one of the right and one of the left, who were protecting me. I was in situations most terrible, was hopeless the situations. And God willing, I got out of there alive. One day I caught a German, was 2 German Saki, and caught him alive. And they brought him up to headquarters. So what they do is they interrogate him, and once they get all the information out of them, then the person who caught them has the honor to execute him. So he says, now it was my time to pull the knife out and do the job. So I gave it to my body.
So in the end, you felt like it wasn't something that you wanted to do.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah. And do you think there's any lessons for us today from your father? What can we learn from his name was Leopold Cohn?
Yeah.
What can we learn from your father?
You have to be compassionate to your fellow man. You do whatever you could. You can be selfish. There was a custom that in Pressburg, after the prayers Friday night, there were a lot of beggars came from different towns where there was poverty. So my father was very careful. He left the last one in the synagogue. The reason was there were beggars still outside, which nobody wanted to take. They were smelling. It was not fit, to sit at the dinner table. And my father used to take those who nobody wanted. They brought them home. And not only that they smelled, they had lice.
And so your lesson is courage and your father's lesson is compassion. And together that is a good recipe for creating a mensch, a good young men and women, which is something that we certainly think that you're a role model for. And how did you come to have a connection to Staten Island?
I had somebody who called me up. There's a gentleman who has a lot of property in Staten Island. And they need somebody to manage it, to build it. He had a heart attack, he was in the hospital. So he called me in, I came there and I spoke to him. And we agreed that I'm going to get 30%, he's getting 70%, and we're going to build together. So I went to Staten Island. When I came out, it was half of awkward.
I met Romi 40 years ago. We represented him, my brother and I, at that time. And Charlie was when he first got out of law school, right? Worked with us.
Got me one of my first jobs.
So it's sort of like a reunion today.
Yeah.
Can you just quickly tell us about the writing of the book with your neighbor?
When I decided finally, when they came out, the Holocaust deniers, and I said, you can't continue that luxury. We're not thinking about it. Now it's time to speak up. So I agreed to have an audio video with Yad Vashem, which is one of the Holocaust institutions in Israel. I have a close friend of mine, a neighbor. He's an Italian neighbor. His name is Ciaccio. He saw the manuscript. So he told me, do me a favor. You have to do a little bit work here, because you can't say things in 2 lines what happened a whole day. You have to elaborate a little bit more. Come sit down with me on the computer and I'll fill in. So this is Ciaccio.
He came as well last year for Holocaust Remembrance
That's
Day
right,
and
yeah.
spoke about
Yeah.
how the idea had originated during a lot of fishing trips, that the two
Yeah.
of you did a lot of fishing
Yeah,
together.
he's a big fisherman, yeah.
And that it was a great pleasure of his to leave the science field from the College of Staten Island and work on this history project with you. And I think it's a beautiful example of this, whatever your background is, if you're committed to the Holocaust remembrance and committed to capturing these stories of courage, that we all can collaborate to make sure these stories of individuals who've made a difference on Staten Island and who've made a difference in the world, can be told, and that our young people, this is the mission of the Holocaust Center, can hear about these stories. So they don't just know of Anne Frank and Elie Wiesel, but they know that the person that built the house down the block from them was also somebody who fought in the resistance. I think that's so important. What can a Holocaust Center do to help make sure that we never forget Zachar?
Well, by doing this, what you're doing now, people should know. If you don't talk about it, they don't know. And keep on talking about it. They should know that don't let that happen again. You have to speak up. You can't be silent majority. If things goes on there, people have to stand up and speak about it and stand up against it. And don't let the fire burn till it's so that you can't stop it anymore. Stop it right at the roots. Don't try to be tolerant. Speak up.
Never again.
Never again. That's
Never
right.
tolerate prejudice
Yes,
and
never again.
anti-Semitism and
You have to
racism.
stop it right at the beginning.